The vibration against my desk was aggressive, insistent. My phone lit up, a crimson banner screaming across the screen. Critical alert. FinSecure Vance Trust. ***. My breath hitched. That alert wasn't just a notification. It was a digital tripwire I'd coded myself, a ghost in the machine guarding the stocks my father left me. A second buzz followed instantly. A text from our family lawyer, Arthur. "Ethan, call me now. Urgent." The blood drained from my face. Only 2 people could access that trust, me and my sister, Sarah. And I was sitting in my Chicago office, staring at the proof. A cold, hard certainty settled in my gut. Sarah had finally done it. She had crossed the one line I never thought she'd dare. Sarah and I were never close. She was the free spirit. I was the responsible one. Our family's polite terms for reckless and boring. While I spent 2 decades building FinSecure solutions, she drifted through a series of failed ventures, each funded by a dwindling sense of parental guilt. She resented my stability, calling it a cage. I saw her, freedom, as a chaotic, self-destructive spiral. Our father, in a final act of desperate optimism, left us the stocks in a joint trust, convinced it would force us to connect. He was wrong. She saw a lifeline for her next bad idea. I saw his legacy. A legacy she was now trying to liquidate with a forged signature. My hand was steady as I dialed Arthur. This wasn't shock. It was the confirmation of a lifetime of disappointment. He answered on the first ring. "Ethan, I have the sell order. It's for the full amount." "The signature," he hesitated. "It's a near-perfect match." "It's fraud, Arthur," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Do not block the sale yet. Let her think it went through. Let her have 1 day of victory. Then we drop the hammer." "Ethan, are you certain?" Arthur's voice was frayed with professional anxiety. "Letting the sale execute. That's a dangerous game. Once the money is in her account, it becomes infinitely more complicated to claw back." "Complicated is Sarah's specialty, Arthur," I replied, the ice in my voice surprising even me. "This time, the complications will be hers, not mine." The silence on the line was a familiar one, the same heavy pause my father used to take before asking me to clean up another of Sarah's messes. It was a silence filled with a history of forgiven debts and forgotten promises. The last major one was her, eco-friendly boutique, a venture that collapsed under the weight of her extravagance. I'd mortgaged a rental property to give her the seed money. In return, I got a sob story and a storeroom full of unsold bamboo t-shirts. She didn't even apologize. She just blamed the unethical competition. I could still hear Dad's tired mantra. "She has a good heart, Ethan. She just flies a little too close to the sun." What he called flying, I called burning through other people's money. He was the perpetual enabler, writing checks and making excuses, always asking me to be the bigger person, the stable ground for her chaotic landings. But Sarah never wanted to land. She just wanted a new runway, paid for by someone else. When Dad got sick, he thought the Vance Trust would be his masterstroke, a financial adhesive to bond his fractured children. In his study, with the scent of old books and fading hope in the air, he spoke of legacy. Sarah saw a jackpot. I saw a final, desperate test, one she was destined to fail. That's why, the weekend after his funeral, I didn't just grieve. I went to my office and I coded. I built the FinSecure alert system from the ground up, a silent, digital guardian for our father's legacy. It wasn't an act of paranoia. It was an act of grim acceptance. I knew this day would come. I even built a direct, encrypted alert pathway to your firm, Arthur. We planned for this contingency. She has a history of playing the victim, I said, my voice flat and final. This time, I want undeniable proof. A full transaction record, a documented forgery, and the money sitting in her bank account. Let her have her victory lap. Let her feel rich. The fall will be that much harder. Arthur sighed. a sound of legal parchment crackling under pressure. Against my better judgment, Ethan, but you're the client. I'll monitor the transfer. The second it's complete, I'll have the full digital and paper trail ready to file. God help us if she moves it offshore. She won't, I said, a grim certainty in my voice. She's not smart enough to be that cautious. She's too arrogant. She'll want to spend it, to flaunt it. Let her. Hanging up, I swiveled my chair to face the panoramic window overlooking the Chicago River. The next 24 hours were a unique form of torture. I tried to work, to lose myself in lines of code and financial projections for FinSecure, but my focus was fractured. Every email notification made my heart hammer against my ribs. Every buzz of my phone was a potential landmine. It was a digital waiting room for a betrayal I had orchestrated. I was both the patient and the surgeon, waiting for the sickness to fully manifest before I cut it out for good. The confirmation didn't arrive with a bang, but with the quiet chime of a single, sterile email from the brokerage firm late the next morning. Subject: Transaction confirmation, Vance trust account. The attached PDF showed the sale of every last share. A second notification pinged from my own system. Funds successfully transferred to linked account, Sarah Vance. It was done. The legacy was gone, liquidated into a string of numbers in her bank account. I felt a hollow ache, a final, definitive loss for my father's misplaced hope, but it was immediately replaced by a cold, clear sense of purpose. My phone rang. Her name, Sarah, glowed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering, smoothing my voice into a mask of weary indifference. Hello, Sarah. Ethan, you will not believe the most amazing news. Her voice was sickeningly bright, laced with the giddy triumph of someone who thinks they've just pulled off the perfect crime. Try me, I said flatly. The market must have had a huge upswing. The trust, well, it paid out. Dad's investment finally matured. It's a miracle. She was actually trying to sell me this fantasy, this lie, that it was a stroke of luck, not a federal crime. A miracle, I repeated, my voice devoid of emotion. Yes, and I have this incredible new venture idea. It's a holistic wellness retreat combined with a cryptocurrency platform. It's revolutionary. Dad would have loved it. He always wanted me to have the capital to follow my dreams. The audacity of it stole my breath, using our dead father as a shield for her theft. And listen, she continued, her tone shifting to one of magnanimous pity. I know things have been tight for you. That little company of yours must be a struggle. I'm going to send you a little something. Let's say 50,000 for old time's sake, just to help you out. 50,000, a pittance, a tip for the brother she'd just robbed of millions. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a final, smug twist of the knife. That's generous of you, Sarah, I said, the words tasting like ash. Well, I'm in a generous mood. I have to go, Ethan. My designer for the retreat center is on the other line. Big things are happening. She hung up. I stared at the phone for a single, silent second. The trap was set. The bait was taken. The evidence was secured. My thumb moved with practiced speed, dialing Arthur's number. He answered instantly. We have it, Arthur, I said, my voice like a chip of ice. The gloating phone call and everything. File the report. Freeze her accounts. Now. The silence after Arthur's acknowledgement was absolute. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel rage. I felt a profound, chilling quiet, the kind that follows a storm you knew was coming your whole life. I walked over to my office coffee maker, my movements measured and deliberate, and brewed a fresh cup. This wasn't a celebration. It was a procedure. An extraction. Sarah was a malignancy, and I was the surgeon. My hands were perfectly steady as I lifted the cup to my lips. Less than an hour passed, long enough for the wires to hum, for the digital locks I designed to snap shut across the country. My phone didn't ring. It exploded with a series of frantic, back-to-back calls from Sarah. I let the first 3 go to voicemail, a small, cruel tax on her patience. On the 4th, I answered. What did you do? The voice was unrecognizable. The giddy Victoria's sister from an hour ago was gone, replaced by a raw, guttural shriek of pure panic. I could hear her gasping for air. I took a slow sip of my coffee. "I'm not sure I follow, Sarah. You were just telling me about your revolutionary wellness retreat." "My cards, my bank, it's all frozen. My designer is here, and my card was declined. The bank manager just called me. He was talking about a criminal investigation." "Ethan, what did you do?" I swiveled my chair to face the window again, watching a barge move slowly down the river. "I believe the correct question is, what did you do?" "What are you talking about? You heard me. Dad's investment paid out." "It was a market miracle," she sobbed, the lie sounding pathetic and flimsy even to her own ears. "There was no miracle, Sarah," I said, my voice as calm and flat as the water below. "There was a sale. A fraudulent sale, initiated with a forged signature. My signature." I let the words hang in the air, each one a perfectly placed stone, sealing her in. A choked, strangled sound came through the phone. "No, you can't prove that." "Oh, I can. The moment you signed that document, you triggered an alert system I built myself. It logged your IP address. It recorded the exact time of the digital signature. It sent a copy of the forged document directly to Arthur's encrypted server. We have a complete, unbroken chain of evidence. We have the transfer record into your account. We even have a recording of you, less than an hour ago, admitting your possession of the funds while trying to bribe me with $50,000 of my own money." The silence on her end was no longer tactical. It was the sound of a world collapsing. "This isn't just a family squabble anymore," I finished, my voice dropping to a whisper. "This is wire fraud. It's a federal offense. You didn't just fly too close to the sun, Sarah. You flew straight into a cage." The silence that followed her choked gasp was heavier than any accusation. I hung up the phone, placing it back on my desk with surgical precision. The rage I expected to feel was absent. In its place was a vast, cold emptiness, the vacuum left when a lifetime of cancerous hope is finally carved out. My father was wrong. The trust wasn't adhesive, it was a solvent, and it had finally dissolved the last threadbare bond between us. This wasn't just about the money, it was about the pattern. Sarah created chaos, and I was expected to restore order. This time, the order I restored would be permanent. I leaned forward, my fingers flying across the keyboard, opening a secure, encrypted channel to my lead analyst at FinSecure, a man named Ben Carter. Ben was a digital bloodhound, a prodigy I had hired right out of MIT. My message was brief, urgent and discreet. Target, Sarah Vance. Project, holistic wellness retreat and cryptocurrency platform. Find everything. Business plans, potential partners, investor solicitations, LLC filings. I want to know who she's talked to, who she's pitched, and who she's taken money from. Full spectrum. Now. Ben's reply was instantaneous. Asterisk on it. I knew Sarah. Her arrogance wouldn't have allowed her to wait. The moment she thought the money was hers, she would have started making promises, signing documents, and leveraging her newfound wealth to ensnare her next round of victims. The fraud against me was just the seed capital for a much larger con. Freezing her assets was containment. Understanding her next move was the checkmate. As expected, my phone rang less than an hour later. It wasn't Sarah. The caller ID read, Aunt Carol, our father's older sister, the family's designated peacekeeper and guilt tripper-in-chief. I let it ring twice, took a deep breath, and answered with a calm I did not entirely feel. Ethan, dear, she began, her voice a practiced blend of gentle concern and stern disappointment. I just got off the phone with Sarah. She's an absolute wreck. Hysterical. She told me the most confusing story about the trust and the bank. Ethan, what on earth is going on? Hello, Aunt Carol, I said, my tone level. What exactly did Sarah tell you? She said there was a terrible mistake at the bank, a misunderstanding, And that you overreacted and had her accounts frozen. She's your sister, Ethan. Your only sister. To do something so drastic without even talking to her first. The old script. The one I'd been forced to read my whole life. Sarah makes a mess. I get blamed for cleaning it up too harshly. There was no misunderstanding. I cut in, my voice sharp enough to slice through her gentle facade. Sarah committed a federal crime. She forged my signature to liquidate the entire trust and transfer millions of dollars into her personal account. I have digital proof, I have a paper trail, and I have a recording of her admitting it. This isn't a family drama, Carol. This is fraud. There was a stunned silence on the line. Fraud? Ethan, that's such a strong word. She's just not organized enough to do something like that. The absurdity of the excuse, that she was too incompetent to be a criminal, was the family's favorite defense for her. It was the excuse that had cost my father, and me, a fortune over the years. She was organized enough this time, I said. Just then, a notification pinged on my screen. A secure file from Ben. The subject line. Times Project Wellness. Initial findings, asterisk. I opened it. My blood ran cold. Carol, are you sitting down? I asked. What? Ethan, don't be dramatic. She didn't just steal from me, I said, reading from Ben's preliminary report. She used a falsified statement of her new net worth, my money, as proof of capital to solicit investments for her sham wellness retreat. She's already taken seed money. I'm looking at two names right now. Do you recognize the names Dr. and Mrs. Albright? Your old neighbors? The line went completely quiet. The Albrights were a retired couple in their late 70s. Kind, trusting people who had always had a soft spot for Sarah. She told them she had a matching funds opportunity. I continued, my voice a low, dangerous growl. She showed them the fraudulent balance in her account and promised to double their investment. They wired her $200,000 yesterday afternoon. Money they can't afford to lose. This wasn't about funding a dream, Carol. It was about funding a fantasy by preying on the elderly and our family friends. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. The gentle matriarch was gone, replaced by the sound of genuine shock. This is my move, Carol. This is the only move that's left, I said, pressing the advantage. I'm giving you, as the head of this family, one chance to help me fix this, not cover it up. Fix it. I have a proposal for Sarah, drafted by Arthur. It's non-negotiable. A proposal? She whispered. Option A is the one we are currently on. The district attorney gets the file from Arthur this afternoon. The FBI will likely take over due to the wire fraud element. She will be arrested. The Albrights will get their money back from whatever assets can be seized after the government is done, and Sarah will likely spend the next 5 to 7 years in a federal prison. Her life as she knows it will be over. I let that sink in. Or, I continued, there is option B. Sarah signs a legally binding document. It gives me full, temporary power of attorney over her financial affairs. The stolen money is returned to the trust. The Albrights are paid back in full, with interest, from her share. She will enter a 90-day inpatient program for compulsive behavior and undergo a full psychiatric evaluation. After that, she will be on a strict court-monitored allowance, and every financial decision she makes will go through a third-party controller for the next 10 years. She will also write a letter of confession and apology to the Albrights. She chooses. Option B, I tell Arthur to hold the criminal complaint. She hesitates. She tries to negotiate. She even calls you to cry about it. And the choice is made for her. The file goes to the DA. I forwarded Ben's report to her email. I just sent you the proof, the wire transfer from the Albrights, the fabricated pitch deck she sent them using Dad's legacy as a final piece of leverage. You have 1 hour to convey the terms. Her choice. I ended the call before she could reply. There was nothing left to say. The next hour was the longest of my life. I didn't work. I didn't move. I just watched the second hand on my watch sweep, each tick a hammer blow against the silence. 59 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Carol. Arthur's office. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. She'll be there. The next morning, the air in Arthur's conference room was thick enough to suffocate. It smelled of old leather, expensive paper, and fear. Sarah sat opposite me, shrunken and hollowed out. Her designer clothes looked like a costume on a ghost. Her face was a ruin of tear-streaked makeup and disbelief. Aunt Carol sat beside her, a stony-faced chaperone, her purse clutched in her lap like a shield. Arthur sat at the head of the table, a grim arbiter of fate. He slid two thick document packets across the polished mahogany, one bound in simple blue, the other in a stark, intimidating red. "The choice is simple, Sarah," Arthur said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "The blue packet contains the power of attorney agreement, the terms for repayment and restitution, and the commitment papers for the treatment facility, as outlined by Ethan. You sign it, and this matter is contained. The red packet is my complete file for the district attorney. It contains the evidence of forgery, wire fraud, and the complaint from the Albrights, who I spoke with this morning. If you do not sign the blue packet, I walk this red one across the street to the courthouse myself." Sarah's eyes darted between the packets, then locked on me. The raw hatred in them was a physical force. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "My own brother, destroying my life." "Your life?" I leaned forward, my voice low and devoid of heat. "You're worried about your life?" Dr. Albright had a minor stroke last night after learning his life savings were gone. His wife called Carol in hysterics. "This isn't about your feelings anymore, Sarah. It's not about your dreams or your next brilliant venture. This is about the real, tangible harm you've caused. This is about justice for them." Her face crumpled. The last of her defiance shattered against the hard reality of her actions. "It was a mistake," she sobbed. "I was going to pay them back. I was going to make it all work." "No, you weren't," I said flatly. "You were going to fail, just like every other time. But this time, you were taking innocent people down with you. Dad isn't here to bail you out. I'm not here to bail you out. This is the only deal on the table." She looked at Aunt Carol, her eyes pleading for a rescue that wasn't coming. Our aunt just gave a small, firm shake of her head. "Sign the papers, Sarah," she said, her voice heavy with finality. "It's the only way." Quote. With a trembling hand, Sarah reached for the blue packet. Her sob was a wet, defeated sound. Arthur uncapped a pen and pushed it towards her. The scratch of the nib on the signature line was the only sound in the room. Page after page, she signed away her freedom, her finances, her future as she knew it. Each signature was a confession. Each one was a link in the chain she had forged for herself. When she finished, she pushed the documents away as if they were poison and buried her face in her hands. I stood up, my chair making a soft scraping sound on the floor. I didn't look at her. My gaze was fixed on Arthur. "Arthur," I said, my voice crisp and clear. "Execute the transfer to the Albrights. Now. From my personal account. Cover the full $200,000, plus an additional $50,000 for their distress. We'll sort out the reimbursement from the trust later. I want them to have their money back within the hour." Arthur nodded. "Consider it done." Quote. Aunt Carol looked at me, her expression a mixture of awe and fear. Sarah didn't even look up. I walked out of that conference room without a backward glance. There was no victory, no satisfaction, only the cold, clean feeling of a necessary, long overdue amputation. The justice wasn't for me. It was for the Albrights. It was for my father's memory, which she had so casually desecrated. As I stepped out into the bright Chicago morning, I felt the first glimmer of something I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, but peace. The chaotic storm named Sarah Vance had finally been contained. The order was restored. The city noise hit me like a physical wave as I stepped from the hushed quiet of Arthur's building. Horns blared. People shouted. It was the sound of a world that didn't care about the quiet, brutal surgery I had just performed. I felt no elation, only a hollowed-out calm. The peace wasn't in Sarah's defeat, but in the finality of it. The pattern was broken. My phone chimed, a clean, simple notification from my own bank. Not a red alert, but a cool green. Knox wire, transfer complete, Vance to R. Albright, ***. The digital proof that the first step of the restitution was done. Seconds later, it rang. An unfamiliar number, but the name underneath made my breath catch. Nabin Naxel at Rakoff, Eleanor Albright. I hesitated for only a second before answering, my own voice sounding distant to my ears. "Hello, Eleanor." A sob broke on the other end, but it wasn't one of grief. It was a ragged, cathartic gasp of pure relief. "Ethan. Oh, Ethan. Our bank manager, he just called us. He said the money, it's all back. He said there was extra. We didn't understand." "I wanted to cover any fees in distress, Eleanor," I said, my voice steady. "What Sarah did was unforgivable. I am so sorry you were caught in the middle of it." "Sorry? You saved us," she wept, her voice cracking with emotion. "Robert, he's been sitting in his chair, just staring at the wall since last night." When I told him, he looked at me for the first time. He actually smiled. "You have no idea what you've just given back to us, Ethan. It wasn't just the money." I closed my eyes, leaning against the cold brick of the building. The sounds of Chicago faded away. This was it. This was the victory. It wasn't the sight of my sister's signature on those papers. It was the sound of this woman's hope being restored. It was the image of a good man smiling again. My father had always asked me to be the bigger person for Sarah's sake. For the first time, I felt I had been the bigger person for the right reason. "I'm just glad you're both okay," I said, my throat tight. After we hung up, I stood there for a long moment. The weight I'd carried my entire adult life, the unspoken responsibility for my sister's chaos, was gone. Replaced not with joy, but with a profound, quiet clarity. I had finally stopped cleaning up her messes and started fixing the damage. The storm was over. I turned and walked into the anonymous city crowd, finally my own man. What would you do in this situation? Press full legal charges against your own sister for the fraud, or try to handle this immense betrayal privately within the family?